Our second reading today comes from the Gospel of Luke, and it starts with verse 5 of the very first chapter. Well, there's 4 verses before this, and Luke basically says, you may be wondering about this Jesus person. I looked into it, and this is what I found out. And this is how he starts his story. In the days of the ruler Herod, there was a priest named Zechariah of the priestly class of Abijah. His wife Elizabeth was a descendant of Aaron. Both were worthy in the sight of God and scrupulously observed all of the commandments and observances of our God. They were childless, unable to conceive, and they were both advanced in years. Now, it was the time of Zechariah's priestly class to serve. And as he was fulfilling his priestly office before God, it fell to him by lot, according to priestly usage, to enter the sanctuary of our God and offer incense. While the full assembly of the people was praying outside at the time of day when the incense was offered, an angel of our God appeared to him, standing to the right of the altar of incense. Zechariah was deeply disturbed upon seeing the angel and was overcome with fear. The angel said to him, "Don't be frightened, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear a son, whom you will name John."
Zechariah was terrified. His story ends with a child, with a song that breaks the years of silence, but it begins in fear. In the Gospel of Luke, an angel appears to Zechariah, and while he's serving in the temple, and Zechariah is terrified, the Greek word is terasso, a deep inner shaking, visceral, overwhelming. This isn't your polite startled. This is absolute terror. Too often, we rush past these fears in these stories, eager to get on to the joy, the resolution, but Luke won't let us skip ahead. The gospel and this reading opens with 5 crucial words: in the time of Herod. Herod the Great, they called him. Great at violence, great at exploitation, great at crushing anyone who threatened his power. He taxed people into poverty. He murdered his own family members. He ruled through fear. And the time of Herod was just not an emotion. It was the air that the people breathe. We, too, live in a time of Herod. This year, as NPR reporter Michelle Kellerman reported, our federal government eliminated the X gender marker from passports. Transgender, non-binary, intersex people must now carry documents that force them to out themselves with every flight and every border crossing. Ashton Orr, a transgender man from West Virginia, applied to update his passport days before the policy changed. The State Department kept his passport, his birth certificate, his marriage license. After receiving death threats and being attacked in a public bathroom, he told NPR, "I can't stay in this state, and it's heartbreaking because I love it here, but I don't feel safe anymore." This matters to us because we have children and grandchildren, nieces and nephews, people we love who are trans. When the government declares a whole categories of people don't exist, that's erasure. And genocide scholars tell us erasure is always the precursor to violence. So what do people of faith like us do? We out ourselves. We make it clear that this is not someone else's concern. These are our relatives, our beloveds, our friends, people in our families, people in our church. So we call our representatives. We vote with justice in mind. We give money to organizations doing the work. We learn correct pronouns and use them. We interrupt harmful conversations. We don't just say we're welcoming, we act like it. Fear in our time does not stop with one issue. 47 million people in the United States face food insecurity in 2023. The highest level in a decade. 14 million of those are children. 1 out of every 5 kids. This September, the Trump administration ended the 30-year federal survey that tracks hunger, calling it politicized and fear-mongering. Making hunger invisible doesn't make it disappear. Healthcare costs keep climbing as benefits are rolled back. Voting rights remain under attack. Immigrant communities face heightened threats. Fear lives in our bodies. It shapes our days. Zechariah and Elizabeth carried their own fear. They had no child. In Luke's telling, Elizabeth was barren. They were advanced in years. When Elizabeth finally conceived, she spoke of God taking away her disgrace. That's her word, disgrace. Whatever sorrows their childishness held, Elizabeth felt it was a disgrace. Biblical scholar Bo-Young Lee writes about how fear becomes embedded, not just in our thoughts, but in our bodies and our relationships, our public discourse. Fear changes how we move through the world, the way your stomach drops when you hear certain news, the tightness in your chest when you think about what's coming, the exhaustion of staying alert and staying safe. And here what happens. We stop asking. We stop hoping, not because we don't care, but because disappointment has taught us to protect ourselves. We learned not to want anything that seems impossible. Bo-Young Lee asked 2 questions that pierce through our defenses. What are we afraid to hope for? And what have we stopped praying for? Maybe it's safety for a trans child, whether they're 5 or 50. Maybe it's a healing in a relationship broken so long you stopped believing it could mend. Maybe it's a deep ache for deeper connection, longing to know and to be known in ways increasingly rare. Maybe it's rest. Just one season where the weight lifts. Maybe it's something you barely let yourself think about anymore because wanting it hurts way too much. Elizabeth stopped hoping for a child. At some point, after how many years, after how many prayers, she stopped asking. Not because she didn't want it, because hope kept breaking her heart. This is what fear does. It doesn't make us afraid of what might happen. It makes us afraid to want what we long for. So here is what happens in the temple in Luke's story. Zechariah was burning incense. People are outside praying, and an angel appears, Gabriel, the same one who will visit Mary 6 months later. And Zechariah is terrified, that deep, visceral fear. Gabriel's first words, do not be afraid. Not, you shouldn't be afraid. Not, there's nothing to fear. But do not be afraid. Because something is about to happen. Your prayer has been heard. Elizabeth will bear a son. Do not be afraid doesn't erase the fear, but it meets fear with promise. God doesn't eliminate our fear. God enters into it. This is hope, not the optimistic kind that pretends everything will be fine. Professor Cornel West says it in this way, quote, hope looks at the evidence and says, it doesn't look good at all. Going to go beyond the evidence to create new possibilities based on visions that become contagious to allow people to engage in heroic acts, always against the odds. No guarantee whatsoever. That's hope. End quote. That's the hope that Gabriel announces to Zechariah. That's the hope that pulses between Elizabeth and Mary. Hope that doesn't deny terror, but acts anyway. Elizabeth conceives in her old age. She hides herself for 5 months, maybe in wonder, maybe in self-protection, maybe both. And then Mary comes, and the baby leaps in Elizabeth's womb. She speaks blessing over this young woman, carrying an even more impossible story. Hope moves through their bodies. Hope grows between them. Hope becomes flesh. Writer and pastor Mary Ann McKibben Dana says, hope is action, not feeling. Quote, hope is what we do when we're still afraid. End quote. Not a fuzzy to cultivate, not a prediction about outcomes, but the things we do precisely because the evidence doesn't look good, but we're going to act anyway. Beloved, what are we afraid to hope for? The question isn't asking us to stop being afraid. It's asking, what if we hoped anyway? What if we insisted on hope, not because the world is safe, but because people have kindled hope in darker times than these? Not because we can see how it will all work out, but because God enters into the struggle and love persists even when hate seems louder. Zechariah and Elizabeth, An old priest struck silent. A woman who carried disgrace. This is where God begins. This is where God always begins, with the ones who've stopped asking, the ones who thought their story was over, the ones living in the time of Herod who didn't think anything could change. And into that fear, God speaks, "Do not be afraid. Your prayer has been heard." Advent teaches us that we don't just wait for God to show up. We prepare, we act, we build the future we long for, even when we're afraid. Now, this isn't passive waiting. This is the hard work of hope. So what does that look like? It starts with naming. Actually naming what you're afraid to hope for. Maybe you say it out loud to someone you trust. Maybe you write it down. Maybe you just let yourself finally want it again, even though it terrifies you. What have you stopped praying for because it hurts too much to keep asking? Name it. Bring it back. Then act. Take action toward it, not because you're certain it will work, but because hope is what we do when we're still afraid. Maybe it's safety for that trans child or grandchild. Call them. Write your representative. Show up. Maybe it's healing a broken relationship. Send a text. Suggest coffee. Say, "I'm sorry." Try again. Maybe it's deeper connection right here at Mountain Rise. Invite someone to lunch. Ask a real question and listen to their answer. Maybe it's building a more just world. Volunteer at a food bank. Speak up when someone says something harmful. Give money to the work. Give money to the work, including right here. Because one of the ways your giving to Mountain Rise makes a difference is that this congregation is committed to justice, to extravagant welcome, to building a more just world for all. Whatever it is, my friends, take action. Because hope isn't a feeling, it's what we do. And here's what Elizabeth and Mary teach us. Don't hope alone. Elizabeth and Mary needed each other. Mary traveled to see Elizabeth precisely when they both carried impossible hope. They blessed each other. They spoke truth over each other's fear. You need people to hope with you, who will remind you that God has shown up before in impossible situations, who will act alongside you when evidence says it's foolish. This is what the church is for. Not to wait passively for better days, but to insist on hope together, to kindle it, to tend it, to act on it, to build the future we long for right here, right now, even in the time of Herod. In the time of Herod, fear was the air the people breathed, and God still showed up. We live in a time of Herod too. And we're going to pray dangerous prayers and insist on hope and act as if love is more powerful than fear. Because it is. Not because we can prove it, not because evidence looks good, but because we've seen it before in an old woman who thought her story was over, to a young woman who said yes to the impossible, and a baby born in oppression who grew up to say, "Do not be afraid." So this Advent, name what you're afraid to hope for. Take action and move toward it. Don't hope alone. And pay attention to what God does when we insist on hope in the middle of fear. Amen.